Hello, everybody. It's Paula Nutting, your musculoskeletal specialist, and I'm really excited because it is the next month, as in May, and we've got our another Ask Me Anything group. And today I'm really excited to have Douglas Nielsen, who is from the Midwest, Illinois, and he's coming on board with oodles and oodles and oodles of experience to talk a little bit different from what we normally speak about. So this is really about focus on our patients and our expectations and embracing the struggles, really. So I'm going to get Doug to come on board and join us for the next, hopefully, hour.
Thank you so much. Really good to see you. Thanks for inviting me to be part of this.
Excellent. Oh, I'm so excited. I'm really, really excited. Before we get kicked on, you'll see just down, oh, hey, Belinda's here already. So fabulous. We've already got people starting to come in and say hi. We've got the sponsor by Q Academy, so I'm just going to do a quick shout out to these guys. They are a Queensland-based educational platform. They do work face-to-face and online, and a combination of studies for, it used to be the Certificate 4, now it's primarily Diploma for Remedial Massage, which is a global, it's a national translation, which is great, and our the Advanced Diploma of Myotherapy. So that's the next structure up that we have in higher than remedial massage. And again, it's transportable around our country, which is great. Hey, Karen, it's great to see you as well. So these guys are amazing. If you're looking to go from one kind of area of study, but you don't live in Australia, you can still hook on to find out more details. And other side than that, if you're in Brisbane or Southeast Queensland, give them a yell. They also offer free clinics or really, really reduced clinics to help the therapists become more skilled as practitioners. Anyway, we'll be hopefully getting more information from Q Academy middle of this Ask Me Anything group.
So I have been a massage therapist.
Oh my
God. I think this April has been 45 years. Oh my gosh, it's a little wild to hear myself say that, but what a journey it's been. So I'm in the thing I think that I want most people to know, if I'm kind of describing my career, it's really about being in the clinic. And that's the thing that I find most fulfilling and just gives me great joy. With the clinic, I have a clinic here in Champaign, Illinois, which is a city of about 120,000 people. And the clinic has 21 therapists, and I've had it now. It just celebrated its 42nd anniversary. So I see people, but I also have a clinic with many therapists. And then I have a teaching institute that teaches precision neuromuscular therapy. And that's pnmt.org. And for 20 some years, we've been teaching seminars around the United States and a few internationally as well. So just sharing what we know and what we learn in the clinic, and it's all about the learning. So, but for me, all of it is anchored around being in the clinic and seeing people.
The thing that I first found out about you, because many people in Australia I wasn't aware of you, and it was only because I went in and I was looking at the research perch with that Whitney Lowe's quite often in, and I saw you in there, and then I started to dig in a little bit deeper. You offer a lot of practical skills on video as well, don't you?
It's true. Yeah. So in addition to the live courses, especially with the assessment stuff, we found that people really struggled with that after the seminar. So we thought, we'll put a few of those on a platform, and then that just kept building. And now there's 400 or 500 different videos of all sorts of different aspects to it, which we call the PNMT portal. There's a place for everything. There's certainly nothing beats the hands-on instruction of having someone guide you through, the nuances of what great treatment looks like. On the other hand, there's so much to be gained by doing things that transcend time and space, and the ability to view it again at your own time and your own, in your own context. So there are advantages to all. It's just how you choose which domain and why.
Yeah. And, in a perfect world, you incorporate all of it. It's like in the original learning styles, we used to learn auditory, visual, and kinesthetic, and audio digital. And that's what I commonly do all the time now when I'm teaching, both face-to-face and online. But now it's the same thing, is that you have a library of brilliant information that you can video and offer to therapists out there. So it's kind of like a really nice space to say, I've built a library of information. I've got a client who's coming in. They've got an ankle that's playing up on them. I remember something from Doug about 4 years ago. I'm going to dig that up and have a look. So and it's different from pulling out the old McGee or orthopedic manual assessment, or all the 1,000 Leon Chattow's neuromuscular, like all of those books that we have in our libraries. It's much quicker. And I learn better videos.
Yeah. And one of the reasons, like in the past, I was vehemently opposed to like creating DVDs or that sort of thing, because the clinic is my learning laboratory. And this is also true for the people who are on my staff, which means we're always changing, we're always refining, we're always shifting things. So like we print our manuals that we use in teaching for every seminar. There's no closet filled with manuals. So the idea of videotaping something and then having, this is how we do this, just like, nah, that's not possible. But and again, with this web base, we can go in and look at that and go, you know what? There's a better way to do this that we didn't think of before. So we just replace it and just keep on, I'm not stuck with anything. And I feel very comfortable about that, because again, if you're not learning and growing, that doesn't say much for what you're teaching.
And that's a perfect segue into this, where I wanted to go. And here is that therapists can get really stuck and bogged down into their old system of treatment without opening up and seeing what's happening. And so sometimes you can I do this all the time, and I should get great results, but I haven't got the result with this patient or this client. So, and you talk about the clinic struggles. So, that's part of that. If people aren't moving themselves forward, and learning to be more open-minded about, again, we're talking about listening to what the client has to say when they come in, all of the extra bits and pieces. So what is that struggle, embrace, challenge that you talk about?
Yeah. Well, the learning, Paula, is really hidden inside the struggle. When you think about it, if I have a client who comes in and they describe this kind of sharp pain behind their, mid-scapular region, it happens only when they breathe, and I treat their levodocastorum and it goes away, and they're like, oh, this is amazing. Well, that's nice. I've actually learned nothing, right? It's only when the client comes in and says, all that great stuff you did last week, actually, that really didn't help at all. And that's when it's like, wow, okay, then. Now you have to go back to the drawing board and say, well, why didn't it? And that's about being reflective in practice. I have to say, I'm embarrassed to say this, but I think years ago, you could describe my teaching style as, I have a fabulous answer, and I hope you find a question that goes with it, and what a dumb way to go about stuff, right? And really now it is about, here are skill sets that you can use. It's more about having a compass than a map, right? Because who knows what the context of the client that you are going to see will be. And that's, often in seminars, people say, well, I have a client who, what do you think about? It's like, the odds of me being correct are so small, because the nuances that could happen inside of that are hard to even calculate. What you need are the skill sets to make those decisions. And that is also what makes the work so rich, is that, I think therapists, I certainly did not have any concept as to the multitude of decisions that every therapist makes in every session. I mean, if you videotaped a session, just think of all the decisions in terms of where you put your hands, the questions that you asked them, the sequence that you did. Why did you go from here to there? All of those are decisions. The question is, did you do it by design or by default? And default mode is, something you can fall back on, but that's hardly how you get great results, and results that are tailored to individual clients instead of some broad-based idea of, some concept. The person sitting in front of you is a real human being with unique set of circumstances. Every person is unlike the last person you just saw, even if the symptoms are identical. And for me, that's why I have hanging outside my my treatment thing is a scroll I brought back from Kyoto in Japan, and it's Ichigo Ichie, which is every moment for service is a moment never to return. And that's why, I feel like I have that scroll hanging outside of my treatment thing, because when I see a lot of people, I want to just remind myself that every person is unique, and I have to bring that skill set to each session to fully honor them.
Yeah, they're beautiful words. I mean, like, in my terrible broken internet that I've got over here, but that's exactly right. Every person comes in with their own story, and we can fall into a trap where, as you said when you first started teaching, I've got great questions, I've got great answers. I'm just waiting for you to ask the right one so I can peel out and tell you how amazing this is.
Yeah.
And I suppose it's even right down to the picture of the same person that you might be treating over a number of sessions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, the the me that is talking to you is not the same me that was in the clinic this morning, or the same me that was in another, I did another interview earlier today. And so to stay in the moment is actually, I think, one of the most difficult things. When people ask me, Paula, about the work, and if it's difficult, if it's taxing for me, I think it's not taxing physically as much as it's taxing mentally. It's much more difficult to stay focused, to be in locked on focused concentration when I'm seeing one client after the other. That's actually, I think, incredibly hard to be able to do that. The physical skills, yeah, I mean, there's a certain aspect to that, but the mental focus of staying focused and seeing multiple people during the day, that's much harder. And that's a skill set that I've come to celebrate and kind of develop, actually.
Nutritionally, that would make a difference too, right? So if you are sitting there going, I'm great at the start of the day.
Yeah, I wish I had something brilliant to add in terms of like a nutritional thing, but I think it's really a discipline. It's, for me, like every day is a bit like a meditation, and that's can I stay focused and keep up the same energy during the day? That there are certain little breaks that happen, but honestly, I don't get many. And I think over the years, it's just that consistency, that being able to sit down with the person who I'm in front of, and let that be the sole director of my attention. It's something I really relish, and something I feel like it's really important, and it's about building that relationship with the people who come in, who often will show the soft underbelly of their existence with the struggles that they are having. Yeah, if I might say one thing, Paula, I one time I was talking on the phone with someone, And this person went into a 45-minute discussion of her saga in healthcare and how difficult it was. And when I got to where I was, an office that I was working, actually it was the Massage Therapy Foundation when I was president of that. I was sharing with them just that I had this conversation, and one of my staff up there said, it's hard for me to believe that someone who you've never met has been that vulnerable to you, right? And my comment to her is, yes, but she's not the only person that's vulnerable. I am also vulnerable, because in that meeting, within 5 minutes, she's going to find out I have no idea what the answer is, right?
Yes.
So we're both vulnerable at that point. And I feel like in that way, I'm holding hands with the client and we jump off the precipice together. And it's, I don't know what the answer is, but I understand something about the process, and I will be here and we will figure this thing out. And we did. It took a while to figure out, but yeah, within 5 minutes, she figured out, yeah, he really doesn't have an answer here.
Yeah.
But there's this trust that he does understand something about the process and was courageous enough to say, I do not know. I don't know what the answer is.
That's so clever. Like, honestly, that's so clever. And I think that is also part of I trust you as you've been my practitioner, maybe for years. Maybe you are referral, and there's somebody else who's referred you, who I trust implicitly, and we know that there's part of the placebo effect of healing at a cellular or body level or a mind-body connection. The second that you put your hands in like, we're going to work this together. Somehow I'm going to do my best to honor you to move us forward. And like you said, I don't know the answer right now, but that doesn't mean that we're not going to work it out.
Yes. And the thing is, I don't know the answer, but I understand the process of discovery. And, if it's this, then these things will be true and this won't. If it's this, then these things will be true, but these things won't be true. But if it's this, and then they get the thing right away that I do understand something about the process of discovery. And this is not a singular event. This won't happen in the first session. But, I tease people that if you say yes to me treating you, just know what you're in for. I'm full-blooded Norwegian. We don't solve problems. We bore them to death. So, I'm in it for the long haul. If I refer you to someone else, I'm still going to stay in touch with you. It is not over until it's over. So just understand, if you say yes to this, that's what you're signing up for. And I think people are a little stunned, because oftentimes in their past, they've seen a practitioner who says, you don't have what I, in my ecosphere. So, see you later. You don't have this. Well, that's great, except they're kind of cast adrift trying to figure this out on their own. But to have a practitioner who says, no, I will stand beside you and I will be together on this journey, no matter where it goes.
It's like you've said here, you got to take, is it the red pill or the green pill? That reminds me of I've in the past, and I probably do stick to this. I normally go, if in 3 sessions we haven't made any progress whatsoever, it's either the wrong practitioner or the wrong modality for you. But it certainly doesn't mean that I'm not going to be sharing your path. That we'll find either it's an exercise physiologist, or it's a physiotherapist, or it's a naturopath, or it's an acupuncturist, or it's a surgeon, or it's a whomever, and we'll work that so that we resolve the problem from where you are now. And I hadn't thought about it as I'm on the journey with you, but it is actually the case. And that comes with age, really, doesn't it? Like the length, the runs on the board. The longer you've been around.
I think that's true. And I do the same thing, Paula, where I want clear and demonstrable, measurable evidence that we're making progress within that 3 to 5 session thing. And if not, then it's, do we reevaluate completely? Maybe the whole hypothesis is wrong. Is the approach wrong? Is the frequency wrong? Is the duration wrong? Or, is this just not the right, thing? And as I say, maybe we should go to a different practitioner, a different discipline. Those are things that we need to explore, but we will have that conversation at the end of 3 or sometimes 5 sessions. I have to say, there have been a few times where I've tried to do that, and people will say, "Oh, no. Like, this is I know you don't, I know you're not impressed with the progress, but this is the only hope I've ever had. And, this, while a 15% improvement is nothing to you, to me, it's everything. So you're not getting out of this so easy."
Yeah.
And it's interesting, because I've had a few people do that to me, and I would have bailed, and they just wouldn't let me, And I've had a few people where after 5 sessions, I still think it's in my domain, and I think it's that I have not figured it out. And I just tell them, okay, this is now officially personal, so I'm not charging you, but this is not over until I figure this out. So
yeah. No, that's cool. I've always, when I used to teach, I'd say to the students, if you haven't had any changes and you cannot get, especially if you can't reproduce the patient's symptoms, if you cannot get a change, how do you know it's not referral from some kind of mass that's in the viscera?
absolutely.
You've got to refer on. If you cannot find out, you can still be working conjunctly, but you have got to refer them for further investigation.
Absolutely.
And that's totally duty of care. And again, that's the process that you're talking about. Like, the process is still, even if we go, we're not making change, I've got a process around it. That's what we're doing.
That's exactly right. And remember, the domain that we're in, we treat mechanical pain. So that's pain that can be made better or worse with movement or position. So if someone presents with pain that is kind of unrelenting and not altered by movement or position, boy, a flag goes up in my head. And I've had at least 3 of those in my career where it was the worst possible news. None of them lived very long. It was the worst possible news. So I think practitioners always have to keep that in mind. Even if you make someone worse, if you aggravate the symptoms, at least you know where the devil lives, right?
Yep.
You approached it, you found out there's a snake in the bushes by kicking the bushes, probably not a good idea, but at least you know what you're dealing with. If you can't aggravate it, if you can't change it at all, that's seldom good news.
Yeah, I totally agree.
My name is Jade Afu. I studied Cert 4 massage in 2014 and then went on to remedial in 2015. I was working in ASICS. I was retail, Lorna Jane. The real reason why I went and studied was my daughter was, she's been quite sick for about 7 years on and off. She's had a couple of chronic conditions. So I found it hard working in a job and having to leave because my children are sick, or I've got to go to hospital, or there's just so many things going on. For me, I needed another option. I've been set up for about 8 years now, working from home. Having a home business has been like such a blessing to my life. I don't think I could have done what I've done somewhere else, just with my own circumstances. My life's very busy. I've got 3 kids. And this year has been a little bit different again, because now I've got 3 kids playing sports every afternoon. So I do try, if I can, work in between school hours. I feel like you can make it work to your advantage. So you can either work as hard as you want and be stressed and all the things, or you can make it flexible.
Pain and invalidation. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, boy, it's something, a few years ago, Paula, I wrote a book called The Mystery of Pain.
Okay.
And in researching that book and talking to a lot of people in pain and with my own clients, a theme that just kept coming up over and over again is that either through providers or family or friends, that people just not believing them. And, that especially when nothing plausibly explained it, which we now know there's a classification of pain called nociplastic pain. It's really great when something's validated, when you can look at an image and go, oh my gosh, well, that's the source of your pain. And this is the idea that pain could be seen, identified, and therefore eliminated. And it's a lovely idea. It's not very often true, but it's a lovely idea. A lot of the pain that folks like you and I see aren't really validated by an image, but just because somebody can't see it doesn't mean that you don't have it, right? Yeah. And so this becomes such a struggle. And it happened today, with, I'll just tell you, somebody I saw today, she had a hip replacement. Immediately after the replacement, had pain down the lateral thigh. I suspect there might have been just, an injury to the lateral femoral cutaneous nerve. But, here's her thing. She goes back to the surgeon. They take an x-ray. The replacement, looks excellent. And then finally, the surgeon just said, it's not my fault. And like, nobody's looking for fault here. It's like, I just want to feel better, right? And there was this question of, since the hip replacement looks great, then there's like, are you really feeling the pain that you feel? And she, in the session, was kind of questioning herself. It's like, how crazy is that, right? You know what you feel, but having a provider question it is one thing. It turns out in the research world, it's very clear what's worse is if your significant other questions the pain that you feel. And as you can imagine, that happens more often than you think.
Oh, yes, absolutely. God, my mother was horrendous at that. She had 5 children, 8 miscarriages, a very busy world. And she would go, unless I can see a bone sticking out through the skin, you are going to school. My sister whinged and whinged and whinged for weeks about a sore throat. Mum was like, I don't care, you're going to school. I don't care. It's, stop putting it on. Finally, went and saw the doctor, and he said, these are the worst tonsils I have ever seen in my entire life.
Oh, boy.
And then had them removed. But, then she felt like the worst parent on the planet.
Yeah. So it's really, it's a common theme, Paula, and it happens in multiple dimensions. And I think one of the things that we are really lucky is in our treatment, like someone presents with, a symptom, like for instance, I mentioned earlier that kind of stabbing pain between shoulder blades. I put my finger there and I reproduce that pain. And the person says, oh my God, like that's what I feel. There's not much to talk about at that moment, right? Because you've just reproduced through touch exactly what their experience is. That matters. And we are lucky to be in a discipline where we can do that quite often.
Yeah, exactly. And I suppose what they're saying then is thank you. Like that you're finally, my husband won't listen to me, or my wife won't listen to me, or the doctor thinks that it's become, and you have these, it's a centralized model now, so it doesn't exist. It's gone away. You're crazy. You're malingering.
And then, again, some, skinny Norwegian comes along, puts his finger right there, and then replicates the pain. And then like, wow. I've told this story several times, but there are many of this, but like one young woman with chest pain, 2 years, and I was treating her external oblique. She's sideline, and all of a sudden she blurts out, I knew it. I'm like, what? Like, what? And so she told me that she said, I knew there was something wrong. I knew there was something wrong. The last doctor that she had seen had given her a book on psychosomatic pain, right? And now again, somebody comes along and can replicate her symptoms And I mean, it was just this massive turning point for her personally. And then, the tears came afterwards. And so many of my clients being validated, it's such a powerful emotional experience to them. And from that point, now we have a connection, right? It's through, in a way, through touch and through listening and compassion. I understand. And now let's move forward. Let's understand that this exists. The question is, what is the best way to then deal with this?
Yeah.
And I think that's, but let's establish it that you experience is where we're going forward. And may I just add one more thing? I'm sorry to, but from the clinic today, this woman said something so interesting, because she said, I do not have the language to convey what I'm experiencing to you. It's so beautiful, and she's so correct. Oftentimes, one of the ways that people are invalidated is that we struggle with the language to communicate experience with regard to pain. So, if you don't have that language, you just sound completely inarticulate. And when you sound that inarticulate, then people kind of doubt the credibility of the whole process. But what's at risk, what's at the heart of that struggle is really language to describe different qualities. For instance, certain things when I was at the transverse process of L2, that was a very sharp pain. Just lateral to that on the iliocostalis, that pain actually created a heterotopic pain, a referral to her lateral thigh, which is really interesting. When I was at the top of the iliac crest, looking for nerve involvement there, that had a very different feel to it. When I was over like vastus lateralis, that was actually hypogesic. So she had very little sense. It felt like numb and distant to her. Underneath that, almost like a hyperalgesia. So in one person, this massive range that she had struggled to describe the qualities to.
Yeah, and no wonder she did. I mean, that's like there's three things happening all at once. You've got the referral from the L2 area, and then this hyper and hyper. So no wonder she couldn't. And I suppose if English is not your first language as well, and I'm not sure whether she is or not, but then you've got that other problem. I mean, and we can sit there and say, does it feel like it's sharp or burning? Like we can give a lot of words, but if they're not actually words that they use, then
that's right.
How do we garnish that?
And always what we're trying to do, just like you and I right now are having this conversation, we're using words to convey meaning and experience, but do those words really convey that experience, and what is the fullness of that? And I find that more and more, I'm just fascinated by that, and that's what we're trying to do. And when we ask questions with our hands, I'm also trying to understand the experience of that person in their somatic life, right? And so I feel like that same conversation happens with my hands, and I'm asking questions with my hands, not making statements with my hands.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. So allowing the touch to absorb the information versus bullheadedly going in and stripping muscle or presumably doing whatever you think you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. And before you do something, maybe you should think about what is appropriate, right? And so if we're going to have a conversation, I need to listen to you. I need to fully hear your question and make sure that the answer is in response to the question. And I think if the first rule of communication verbally is to listen first, right? And then clarity and brevity is the second thing. Why is that not true with touch as well, right? So the first rule is to listen first, not to make statements with your hand. And then the second thing is not a barrage of sensory information, but I think the brain understands information delivered through the hands that is clear and concise.
Yeah, don't waffle. So if you're waffling here, it's translating. That's very cool. I hadn't thought about that. And you're right. someone will come in, and if you are, oh, I'm not quite sure what I'm doing, and oh, come on in, it's a different treatment than if you were like, come on in, take a seat, let's take this journey together. One mouth, two ears. I'm not going to, and we had this conversation just before we started, but when we had perfect reception, that I learned from a college or a lecture one time, is that when someone is talking to you about something, especially that's important to them, A, honour it, but B, stop thinking about the next question you want to ask them whilst they are talking to you, because you're not going to be hearing, you're not open to hearing probably what the meaning behind it is.
Absolutely. And it's so difficult to do that in verbally, and I think it's also difficult to do that tactily, right? So to listen first with your hands, to really pick up information and respond to that in very thoughtful ways, it's very hard to do without the rush of, I just need to do something. I mean, it'd be like, well, we're having this interview, I just should say something. Really? Say what? It's more important to say less and have that less be more meaningful.
Yeah. This is going to challenge me a little bit, because part of my treatment process is I would go, all right, I'm going to do supine, knees bent, feet on the table, do a lumbar rotation just to see where they move. And then my brain is already saying, I'm going to do either this or both, because it's automatically programmed into going, well, I know they work, but should I now be going, I'm going to wait, and with my hands more on to feel if there's something different I need to do. And that's going to challenge me, because
I just think you questioning yourself is the best thing, right? The way you typically do it might be good, as long as it's not a default mode, right? But I think the best thing we can all do is question ourselves. And I think, it's one thing when I was president of the foundation, not being a researcher myself, one of the important lessons I learned is, in research, the goal is to falsify, not verify.
Oh, shoot, you are right.
Right. So now when I'm seeing people, I just did it with my last client. I was treating something, and she said, oh my goodness, that is so right on target. And then I moved off of that onto a different muscle and said, whoa, what about this? She said, no, not really. How about this? Different muscle. Not really. Finally, she said, you were on it a while ago, but now you're off of it. It's like, yeah, actually, I know what I'm doing. I was just seeing if it was really the guy I thought, and I think it is. And so if I try to prove myself right, I seem to have no trouble doing it, unfortunately. But if I question myself, the two questions I always ask myself, Paula, is number one, what makes me think it's soft tissue? Because that's my expertise. That means it's also my blind spot, right?
Yeah.
And then probably maybe 60% through a session, when I think I have a formulation, a hypothesis of what's going on, and I feel pretty confident about it, then I'll say, okay, what else would explain this? If none of that were true, then what else would explain this? And almost always the person walks out the door, and I have two kind of treatment methodologies that I'm doing. One of them will prove itself correct, but almost never do they walk out the door and I think, wow, got that narrowed down to one thing. That hardly ever happens.
Yeah.
And usually when it does, I'm wrong. So
yeah. And salient words, exactly, like that. We are soft tissue practitioners, and it's the same as if you're an orthopedic surgeon, everything needs a hammer. If you're a musculoskeletal therapist or a massage therapist, everything needs work on the muscle. But maybe, and I think we should probably also say hands-on assessment. Does it feel like it's a joint or the joint capsule? Does it feel like it's the connective tissue? Does it feel like it's the muscle? Does the muscle feel weak or tight or strong or loose? Does it feel like the nerves are involved, like we can unpack that. Does it feel like it's referral from something more sinister? Does it feel like it's coming in from what's happening here in the head? Does it come in from screaming at the kids or sitting in a certain position in front of your computer? To be presumptuous and think it's only one thing, we're really not our duty of care, are we?
You know, you bring back a memory for me. So every year I've lectured at the medical school. It's really been fun. And I'm just going to say this, and I'm quoting, but I was explaining just that, just having just one little area and the multitude of things that could present as this. And I remember this fourth year in the back said, and I quote, "This shit's complicated." And which I thought was, you know, because personally, I think taking out somebody's gallbladder is kind of complicated, right? And it's like, yeah, it's just that when you look at it at a surface level, it seems pretty simple, right? And you know, I watched somebody, you know, putt a golf ball across the green, and I think, how hard could it be, right? When you don't, everything is easy unless you actually understand it. And
Yeah.
it turns out the more you understand the complexity of what's underneath your hand and all the different influences, it is staggering, actually. And it can be overwhelming in the beginning, I think, for people, which I understand. But that's where the richness lies, is in the complexity, and that we get to be an artist by the wisdom in the choices that we make. And we have a wonderful feedback system. It's called results, right? And when you look at, you know, it's funny. Paula, today somebody called me back and was just telling me they had fabulous results. And, you know, when I hung up the phone, I wanted to say, you have no idea. You have no idea how many variables that were involved in that and how that could have gone 9 ways from Sunday.
Yeah.
And I'm glad it worked out. But they just think, oh, I came in and this guy did this stuff and, you know, things are better. It's like, wow. It's a little more complicated than that.
It is more complicated, which makes me think why an orthopedic surgeon could go, it's not my fault. I've had a look at the x-rays, the bone and the actual head and the whole ball and socket's fine. So there's nothing wrong.
Yeah.
Is it because they've never seen a nerve, or they don't think about it, or it's the insurance? What you kind of wonder. Is the old country doctor?
Yeah, I can't. You know, this. I can't explain somebody's behavior, but this is certainly somebody who's young and you know, she's I think probably a good surgeon, but you know, in the end, you know, it's care for the patient. The patient is telling you, this is my experience. So then it's our job is just to think, what would explain that? And to take ourselves out of that, you know. And if I'm being unsuccessful with a client, you know, the thing is, you know, I tell people in the beginning when I see a new client, here's the deal. If we do that 5 sessions and this fails miserably, it says everything about me and nothing about you, right?
Yeah.
You know what you feel. The fact that I couldn't figure it out that's on me, right? But there's an answer somewhere and somebody will have it. So you have to promise me, if this fails, I will help you look, you know, for the right person. But honestly, what you experience is real and it is your experience.
And I'm not God. You know, like that people sit there and go, hang on, I thought you were going to help me. I was like, trying, but like, I'm not God. And maybe what I'm doing is like, we'll find, you're right. And, be patient with yourself as a therapist. Like, don't automatically assume that you're going to get everybody right.
You know, it's so frustrating to me, Paul, because I say this over and over when I'm teaching, and I don't think people believe me. And I do have this level 2 seminar where people, you know, once they hit a certain level of training with us, they come and we spend 3 days together seeing seeing clients together. I've never met any of these clients before. This is real. This is new. And it just blows me away when, some of these therapists will say, you looked a little lost. They're like, no kidding. I've been trying to tell you this for months, right? Like, this is real life. And I think therapists think that you'll get to a place where you are never lost. I think it's a sad thing that sometimes has been perpetuated by people up on the stage who kind of purport themselves to know every answer to every question and have very simple answers to very complicated questions. And that is why I so relish being in the clinic, because it keeps you just rock solid, grounded to, it's all about results and delivering them consistently. And it's most of the time it's a struggle. So that's the reality. And I think if you're a therapist who struggles out there, welcome to the real world, right? Yeah. We're all like that.
Yeah. And for some reason, the universe seems to give you that the better equipped you are to get reasonable results, the more complex and chronic the people that come through your door.
Absolutely right. Once I feel like I figure out some condition, I think, well, I'll never see that again. Because the next one coming in is like, wow. My joke with my wife when she says, how's your day? It's like on the edge of greatness or total incompetence.
Yeah. Do you know what I love? The thing that I'm loving doing right now is prehab. Prehab prior to the rehab, obviously, but for total knees is a big one that I'm loving right now, because you start looking at the fine motor pattern recruitment stuff and going, no. That's not how you initiate the initial contraction. And then it's like this wonderful journey between the client and myself, or who, if you're doing this as well, going, my God, this is so exciting. It's like we've just got the Cluedo thing and we're looking, going, that those fibers there are amazing and congratulations to them. However, they're not serving you right now because they're creating a jamming in a space that shouldn't happen. So let's try to get these other ones to do the job. And then it is so exciting. Like I can even feel my energy coming up when I'm doing this stuff with these people, and then we do some of the weird neurolymphatic stuff. And
how cool is that? I mean, really, and to be involved in something where we can have that excitement in ourselves, and ways to communicate that with clients, and they feel that excitement, and it's genuine and it's authentic.
We get amazing experiences, and that brings you back as a therapist. So the message I was trying to get out there was, even though as a clinician, if you start to get really complex clients come into you, see that as a valuable struggle, like you were saying, Doug, about improving your quality of becoming a more rounded practitioner. Don't be fearful of the journey of going, I might make a few mistakes, but as you said, clinical reasoning, is it this hypothesis? Is it this hypothesis? Are we working towards a differential diagnosis? How are we going through it together? And embrace those really scary, horrific people, like conditions that come in to see you.
Yeah. It's always, again, the learning is hidden inside the struggle. And it's from those struggles that, if I see someone and they present with whatever symptom it is, and I try 4 different strategies that fail miserably, and then I creatively think of 2 more, 3 more that still no results, and then the next one works. When someone else comes in with that same symptom, I now have 8 different strategies with which to choose from, where initially I had 3 or 4. But not, so everything adds to our database that are the potential tools that you can pull out. The wisdom is really in the choosing, right? But in the beginning, you have to build that database, and then what you learn over time is the different combinations and ways that you can combine things together. So, it's like you're building the color palette, to put on the thing, and then you learn later you can blend colors together to create whole different shadings and this is all great. But the end goal of it all is to create a picture that moves people, you know? And I think that's the important thing. And I do take a little bit of maybe a lot of an issue with the idea of massage therapy, for instance, as a commodity, like I could buy a massage. You know, I'm not interested in the transactional. I'm interested in the transformational. You know, that time on the table when someone has this process of internal discovery that feels like something has shifted, that is transformational. And I think for me, nothing less is acceptable. You know, I want every person to get up and go, wow, you know, that something profound and deep just happened. And for me, nothing short of that is acceptable. That is the goal, you know.
And that is a perfect place to finish as a listener, just to kind of go transformational. Is that what you're getting from each experience? And you're not going to be transformational if you do the same old routine, are you?
No, and that's and to that end, Paula, you know, this is the thing. To be able to have the skills to provide that, like for instance, 3 weeks ago, I got to listen to one of my heroes, which is Yo-Yo Ma. I'm a new cello student, and so I got to see Yo-Yo Ma in concert. And I can guarantee you that if you were sitting next to me, you would not be impressed with his playing. You would be moved, right? It's a level way beyond being impressed with it. It's a level of heartfelt, profound inspiration. You know, you are moved by his playing. The reason you are is because of all the work that he put into making this possible. Because of my role at the Performing Arts Center here a few years ago, 5-6 years ago, I was on stage at a reception when Itzhak Perlman had just finished playing. And so we're on stage, and I was standing next to Mr. Perlman, and this woman came up and said, that was amazing. She said, I would give my life to play like that. And he looked at her and he said, I did.
Oh, wow. I've got goosebumps.
Boom. And so here's the thing. Our task, our responsibility, each one of us as therapists, is to work really, really hard, building that database, building the skills, studying, doing the hard work that no one sees, to be ready when that person comes in to draw from that well of experience, that they deserve nothing less than our best in that moment. Maybe the best thing is that great philosopher, Mary Poppins, who said, if you want to learn to fly, you have to take off from something solid. And you know, that solid base that we spring from is all the hard work that we put in before you actually enter that treatment room. And so, you know, when people talk about working intuitively and all, it's like, yeah, intuitively means that you understand something so deeply that it is no longer cognitive. But that takes, oh my God, so much work to make that happen. And there is, I'm sorry, no other way.
Yeah, that's implicit memory, isn't it? It's stuff that is, I always say, our brain's got like a Rolodex that's at the back there, and we've felt that tissue enough times that it goes back into the educational matrix, something that we've kind of connect with and go, okay, I'm familiar with this. I'm not going blind anymore.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And so when I read, when I'm doing the work of just developing my craft, my skill set, it's in honor of that future client who's going to come in and say, you know, it's the weirdest thing. And then, I've already done that. The time to work on that is not, yes, I do it then, but that's why you work and study and be ready to honor that person who then presents in that moment of vulnerability. And you can say, I understand something about this, and here we go.
Yeah, yeah, fantastic. Any last gems for therapists out there to maybe mindfully keep in the clinic?
Yeah. Well, one, I would say, you know, the world needs what we do more now than really ever before. Peace begins in ourselves and in our bodies. And, 40 years ago, 40 some years ago now, when I first started this journey, I felt like musculoskeletal stuff and the power and promise of hands-on therapies was really underappreciated and underutilized. Boy, is it now I feel even stronger. When you look at the data, I'll just, if you don't mind, between 1990 and 2020, the world incidence rate of musculoskeletal problems went up 123%.
Wow.
In the next 20 years, the estimate is it's going to go up another 115%. So while that is increasing the number of people who do what we do, who are actually working in that musculoskeletal realm is actually decreasing. The world needs us now. We have an important role to do, and now is our time. I've never seen it the way it is now. So one of my favorite ways to present is to present to other disciplines, across the healthcare sphere. I've never seen the kind of openness that I see now. It's like a welcoming, like, good Lord, we need what you do. I've never seen that before in all these decades. I've never seen from the public the kind of acceptance and that this is our moment to step forward and make a difference in the world. And it's up to us now. We are not limited by perceptions out there. We are only limited by ourselves. Now is the time for us to step forward and make a difference in the world.
Yeah, well done. Say thank you kindly. Thank you kindly. Belinda said, when the student is ready, the teacher appears, and usually it's the client.
Amen to that. Absolutely. Amen to that. Beautifully said.
Yeah. Well, Doug, thank you so much for mentoring the first 15 minutes of this when I was MIA.
All good.
Bloody reception. And if people want to know, we've been putting links down about the PNMT online courses and offerings at PNMT. Is it .think?
Yes. .org.
.org, not .com. It's .org. So,
yeah.
Yes. And hopefully they'll get some really good, you'll get a good uptake of that because you've got some crazy, fantastic information out there. And now is the time, as you said, to be bringing that all on board, getting as much information into your own personal library as you possibly can. A big shout out to Q Academy. I normally do a plug in the middle, but guys, we're all kind of tricked up here. So thank you. They are incredible. They do a lot of NLP stuff. So when I was teaching there, we would teach Monday through Thursday, Friday. All of the teachers would get together in the classroom and work out how to design the next week's education to go across all the streams. So they look after the students. Once you've done one course, you could do the course for life. So they've always been really open and generous of their time and support. So if you're looking for really good, effective ways to learn remedial massage or the myotherapy, and hopefully in the wings we're going to have an associate degree in myotherapy, which will be across the higher education stream. So look out for them if you're looking for more education. If you've got any questions or comments for Doug or myself, put them down in the chat box later. We've got some great comments. Thank you, Lauren, for coming in. Thanks, Belinda. Thanks, Esther, for coming in. Thanks, Marfay. It's been great to see some of you on board. And until you won't see me next month because I'm going to be in Canada and the States for all of June. So there'll be something happening in July back on the Ask Me Anything. But Thank you very much, Doug, for your time. It's been brilliant. I was so excited, and you have not failed to deliver.
Thanks. What an honor to be asked, and thank you for the important voice that you're adding to the conversation in the profession. Thank you for the work that you do.
Oh my gosh, it's a pleasure. It's fun, as you know.
It is.
All right, everybody, take care. We're going to see you in July. Thanks again, Doug, and be well, everybody. Treat mindfully and with your heart and soul.